Good evening to everybody. Good evening, Mrs. Bhuvneshwari Subramaniam, today's speaker, and then Dr. Sivarama Prasad, Chairman, ISTD. Rajamani sir is there. And other participants, participants. Today we have two. One,
Sir, your voice is not audible.
my voice is not audible. Right now?
Yeah,
It's
yes,
okay.
sir. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today we have two programs. One is launch of we are going to have July 18th program.
Ramdas, there is some disturbance in your voice. I'm not able to hear.
1 minute. Oh, okay. We have today the business blockchain program brochure launch, and then Madam will talk about that Deva apps program. So now, Mr. P.S. Praveen will explain about what we are going to do with business blockchain for the top management and next generation leaders to know about the blockchain and how it is working, used for the top management, everything. I think now we take over that P.S. Praveen.
Thank you, Ram. Thanks a lot. And it's a pleasure to give one more thing. After last November, we did the International Conference on Blockchain. I am happy that Indian Society of Training and Development, a premier institute in the field of human resources with a distinguished record of servicing about 37 years, to meet the long felt of training need for training and development focused on various courses for HR managers, and we have almost like 600 top managers in Chennai chapter, and apart from that, all India has about 8,000 HR managers enrolled at the ISTD, and it's a very good alliance with an engineering body like Institute of Engineers, which is a 100-year-old organization, and it has been certifying people in 15 streams of various engineering degrees, and it's seen the test of times all over until date, and it has celebrated its last year as a centenary, and we are very pleased to offer this program where this joint program will give people a program of like a general idea, a master class for anybody who is not looking at blockchain technology, but then dive deeper on the applications and real life functions. So it will help business leaders, strategic managers, sales people, CFOs, and CIOs, and the people who are in the monetary policy, banking, finance professionals, some of the software developers who want to have an introduction to the technology, corporate executives, government executives, supply chain managers, consultants, and professionals for this program. And this program will last one day, and it will be about 6 to 7 hours program with me, Gokul Alex. Gokul Alex is again a great trainer, and he brings in a lot of experience on technology side and the implementation of blockchain from the PricewaterhouseCoopers, and his latest experience in the Kerala blockchain world. And we also will have Sudhin Badaukar, who was the innovations head at the State Bank of India and led the bank chain consortium. And he has a rich expertise in the financial sector. And we are now giving to the people not a videotaped thing. We are going to give an entirely interactive session between me, Gokul Alex, and Sudhin Badaukar. And of course, Srinivas Mahankali will be joining in, and he will be explaining about the process of choosing a technology, that is blockchain. whether we have to use it or not in a given requirement. And we are very pleased to announce that Srinivas Mahankali's book, Blockchain for Non-IT Professionals, also will be given away to every participant of this program. And we want to make it very unique, and we want to hand over the best of the knowledge to everybody who wants to learn what is the black box. We don't know what is blockchain. They will come and know what is blockchain, and then they will be educated that this is what is blockchain, this is how we can apply, and these are the areas which we can apply immediately in India. So with that few words, I will hand over this to Dr. Sivarama Prasad to talk about his expectations and how he looks at this program giving benefits to their community of HR managers.
Thank you, Mr. Praveen. I'm Dr. Shiram Prasad, the chairman of IASTD. And just before going for it, and I'll give few words of IASTD. IASTD is a 50 years old organization. Just we celebrated Golden Jubilee, and it's a single largest L&D professionals in Pan India. It's about 6,000 people, among them headquartered at Delhi, and there is 50 chapters we have all over India, and Chennai chapter is the largest one. We have about 850 plus people, and we are mainly associated with the Society of Affiliated International Federation of Training and Development Organization, IFTDO, and also Asia Regional Training and Development Organization, Manila. And this is we are mainly concentrating on L&D, learning and development, and basically we are looking at the 3 different streams. One is learning and development, another diploma course for 18 months online. I mean, remotely we are operating. Now we are doing it online, of course. And this every year 2 times we register this diploma course, certified by Human Resource Department of the Government of India. And then we have various courses and new technologies always we encourage to impart with the professionals, either HR professionals or other technical people. So we are conducting various programs. Even blockchain technology we have conducted in 2018 November, and it is really success. And this technology is very useful for finance. At this point of time in the COVID situation, it will be very, very useful, and we can avoid most of the finance people directly. We can do the transactions, and doesn't mean that CAs are useless, but there is a lot of opportunity for many jobs to be done. But blockchain technology, which is very, very useful, transactionally, it's very good. Anyway, you can hear in this conference, one-day conference on 18th. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll quickly put a launch of this brochure to everybody and scroll to the 7-page brochure for everyone to see a snip, and let me do that. And as I mentioned, Business Blockchain Program is a joint program of 2 large organizations, IASTD and Institute of Engineers. The course overview is a masterclass, as I mentioned. The duration is about full day, and it's an expert-led training program, and it is costing 1,500 for one person. And it has a lot of things which we can add, and the course content will be shared with you shortly, as and when we can send you mails off, and there will be history of blockchains. We'll talk about public blockchains, private blockchains, and basics of blockchains. And we'll also talk about smart contracts, and then we'll talk about a lot of use cases in this: identity management, supply chain, voting, financial markets, and also central digital currency. And we'll also we'll be removing some amount of myths which are associated with it. We have a registration link which will go live tonight, and I will be also joining this program. I've trained about 5,000 people till here, and Gokul Alex, who's the CTO of Beyond Identity, and he's got rich experience with at least 10 types of blockchains. For want of time, I'm not going to do the detailed thing. Sudhin Badavkar is an industry expert, and he comes from the stable of State Bank of India's innovation management team. And the best part is that the blockchain-based certification will be given to you. All your certificates can be verified by anybody who sees the certificate. So this is a fully authentic certificate, and nobody can copy your certificate. It is unmodifiable. So this is a path-breaking thing which we are offering in this course. And a bonus is that the book on blockchain for non-IT professionals by Srinivas Mahankali, principal consultant for National Institute of Smart Governance, a joint venture of NASSCOM and Government of India. Srinivas, if you're thing, then can you just show yourself? Otherwise, I think you're traveling. So this is the entire brochure. In the days coming, we will definitely communicate to all of you, and we request Sri Dr. Sivarama Prasad, Gokul Alex, Chairman, and the Chairman Ramdas to announce this launch done. Sir.
Yeah.
It's
Please launch the brochure.
Yeah, thank you. So that's about it. And we have already taken 17 minutes of Madam's time. And we thank Madam for her time. And we thank everybody for giving us time to present this. And we look forward to see during this program and give you great value for your money. Thank you, Ramdas.
Praveen. So now Sitaraman will introduce today's speaker, Mrs. Bhuvaneshwari Subramani.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. Myself, Dr. Suresh Sitaraman. It gives me an immense pleasure to join with the greatest group, a 100 years old group, Institute of Engineers, an eminence group. This is the first time I'm also given an opportunity to talk about in this greatest forum with the greatest people. At the outset, I'd like to register my wholehearted thanks for everybody here for giving me an opportunity to introduce our today's chief guest. Our today's chief guest, Mrs. Bhuvaneshwari Subramani, she is a director, engineering operations at Infar, AWS community hero, and she has 2 decades of experience in the field of information technology. She is an experienced information tech leader, specialized in cloud computing, DevOps, build and release management, and whatnot. She went abyss to the system of information technology. And her top skills are design pattern, release management, configuration management, software development lifecycle, SDLC. And she is one of the key speaker. I want to stress here. She is one of the key speaker at an international forum, DevOps India Summit 2020 in USA. And she has received a lot of awards. Almost she received more than 10 awards. If I want to list it one and one, I have to take a separate episode for that. To highlight a simple 2 things here, she received an AWS Reinventor User Graphical Leader Award, recipient award 2018. It's an international award, and she is an AWS community hero. And she has received an Alumni Excellence Award from Alumna Mater on the Women's Day 2019. It's our pleasure on behalf of everybody. I invite Bhuvaneshwari Subramani. The dice is yours. You can rock it now. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for the great introduction, Suresh.
Thank you.
I thank Chairman Sir and also President and everyone here for giving me an opportunity to present as part of IEA Forum. I'm pretty excited, and I assure you we'll continue to collaborate with you to share knowledge and also learn from the great sessions that you're going to give. So let me get started with today's session with no further delay about demystifying DevOps. The introduction already, Dr. Suresh spoke a lot. So this is going to be key takeaways for today. We're going to have an overview of DevOps. Then I'll walk you through the present traditional DevOps systems in place or the practices that we have. Later, we'll be talking about what is the DevOps practices that is available on AWS Cloud and what is the value addition that we get by following or adapting the DevOps practices. First place, what is this much spoken jargon DevOps means? So from the people who are from IT background, we have different methodologies or software development models that is adapted in the process of software development. Right from when we think of an idea, make it as a product and make it available for somebody to consume. These days we order a lot of things online, right? With COVID-19, most of us are confined to our houses and we ended up buying a lot of things. If I take Amazon.in as an example, that is a product, finished product as a website available to us. So before that came to us, it would have gone a lot of steps before it reached us as an end product. If I take that as an example, any finished product, in earlier days, it was waterfall model, which probably when we read in the college and all, it was existence of waterfall model, where we gather the information on what has to be automated as part of the software development. We design that and we implement. It's nothing but coding, either in Java or .NET, you sit and code, develop that product and give it for testing. Once it is tested, if there are any issues, the loop goes back, you validate it, and then again, you implement the changes and the testing continues. Only when the testing phase or any specific phase completed, it moves on to the next phase, be it a delivery or deployment. This goes on and on like this. That means we can move it to any specific stage only when the previous stage is finished. So that's a waterfall model. It takes a lot of time by the time what we wanted to give it to the end user, right? Because in each stage, we are supposed to finish it. So that's waterfall model. So we found that is not so quick in getting what we wanted to the end user. Hence, we moved on to agile methodology, where we prioritize set of features that has to get into the product. For example, if you assume online shopping site as a finished product, there is a component or a category where you will choose the items that you want, whether you want to buy some books or you wanted to buy some gadgets, mobile phones, all that. So those are different component or a feature. And if you add all of them to your basket, and if you're going to make a payment, that is another feature or component, we would say. So we can identify what are the key features for your development and then work on it. So in this case, you develop certain things, immediately that will get tested. So the development and testing goes hand in hand. So when this happens, easily the changes are tested and the feedback is given to the agile team. But there is a gap between development and operations team. So development happens, the testing also happens concurrently. Both the team works together in tandem. But how about operations? Operations come into picture when we wanted to take these things live to the production environment. So where is the gap? And the DevOps is the process which I would say it was born in around 2008. It's a relatively young field, I would say. And actually it started getting its limelight after the 2019 DevOps Days, which was held in Belgium. Okay, so the idea just began in 2008. It's not a, 25-year, 30-year-old stuff. It's relatively new and concept, I would say. And in 2019 onwards, when it was actually presented in DevOps Days, it started gaining all the momentum. So from thereafter, the development team and the operations team who's responsible for deploying it into the production environment cannot work in silos. They cannot work independently with blindfolded thinking, okay, something is happening on that side. So they ended up working with a great collaboration. So the DevOps approach or the practice is all about the collaboration between development and operations team, with a continuous feedback flowing across in every stage. So now coming back to answering the question of what is DevOps, it is not a software, I would say. It is not a product which is readily available in the market. It is a philosophy and a practice that focuses on agility, collaboration, and automation within IT and development teams. It's a process. So what does it get? For us, the ultimate goal of this DevOps is to shorten the software development life cycle. That is the time when an idea sparkles, the time when we wanted to add a specific feature to the software, and to the time it reaches the production environment. If it is a online shopping website, the moment you wanted to add a specific feature and the time it reaches the end user or the customer, that has to be as much as possible shorter. Okay, this DevOps process is going to bridge that gap and form it. So how does the DevOps life cycle looks like? First, when we wanted to work on a software, we would plan for it, then sit and code it. After the code is developed, it's your responsibility to create a package out of it, deploy to the staging environment, and get it tested. So that is the role of the development team. Later, how will you get these changes to the production environment? Production environment is where your final end user viewing application is running. So how would you take the changes there? So it goes on. You would release the change to the production environment. It gets deployed by the operations team. You're going to work on it and then monitor what's happening. Okay. For example, if you wanted to have an online shopping application, and if you have 6 web servers, which is going to serve the customers, what we will do, we will have a monitoring application which will continue to monitor health of these 6 applications to ensure that all these 6 are healthy. That is, the CPU utilization have not crossed 80%. So it's healthy and delivering. If there are any issues there, then the alert has to come to operations team. Then things has to be increased. The number of servers that is serving the customers has to be increased. So the loop continues here. If there are any issues, either during the deployment or when customer is trying to make a payment, if there is an error, then that information has to be passed on to the development team. So then they'll work on the changes, build, test, and then release it to the production. The more automation is in place in the entire cycle, and the gap between the development and operations team is bridged, then we will have a seamless release. That's about DevOps lifecycle. Okay, so now what if there is no DevOps process? What is going to happen? You assume you have 2 different teams. So these days, with a lot of modernization and automation, like how we developed a web application using Java or .NET, we also create the infrastructure through code. Creating infrastructure through code is how, when we want 10 servers, web servers to be created for this specific web application, that can also be done through software. So that is infrastructure code. When these 2 teams work in silos, after a month or so, when an integration happens between these two teams, infrastructure team and web application team, it's going to boom, right? So because that's when you're going to see whether this will work. There is a compatibility. If at all, day in and day out, you have this DevOps process set up, a continuous integration is in place to build, deploy the code to the staging environment, get it tested, then it's not going to bomb, right? Okay. So now we saw the overview of DevOps. Let's move on to how traditionally the DevOps are practiced in the data center world. What are the tools that we use day in and day out? So when we talk about software development, we have to definitely talk about various phases involved in the software development. So I would say these are the 4 important and critical phases involved in software development. So whenever you develop a piece of a code, assume you are working on a product that is being developed by engineers distributed across the geography. Probably you have some developers based out of India, somebody from Germany, and somebody from US. So they are working in different time zones and they're working in a close coordination and collaboration. So when they make changes, they need a central place to put their source code. If I make during IST hours, I might have a colleague who might come up and make changes to the same file in their time zone. And after that, a person from Germany would pick up and make changes. Finally, all these changes should be in a central place that is called the source control system, where the source code is maintained. So when I commit the source code, I'll have to cross verified by my peer or superior before the changes are propagated forward. So all these things are done using source control management software. The next phase is where this source code, which is developed, is compiled and an artifact is generated that has to be deployed in a test environment. We call that as a staging environment. So as part of build phase, in the second phase, as part of build phase, so you're going to compile it, generate artifact and give it. Also, there are automated tests called unit tests, which you would run against these applications. At the compilation time itself, parallelly, you can run some developer defined unit tests to ensure that each feature or the unit development is not broken in any way. After that, we'll move on to the deploy stage where we have automation in place, which will take the artifact that is just built and deploy that to the staging environment. So now we have this piece deployed to the staging environment and ready for testing. The testing could be, you will do the UI testing, how the user can use it. You might do a load test. What if it's going to be a Diwali sale? Or if it's a New Year's sale? Then there might be a site-wide 25% discount or 30% discount, which might attract lots of customers, right? That time, the number of users accessing my application might double, triple, or it could be manifold. So for that, if my application is ready to face such a huge sudden increase in the load, to verify and keep the data ready, we do load testing. And also we ensure security aspects are met, penetration testings are done. So these are the testings should be performed. And when you're ready, it can be deployed to production environment. So these are the 4 phases. The first 3, source, build, deploy to staging, testing, and giving the feedback. This loop is called continuous integration. And when we wanted to deploy this finished product, that is at any point in time, you have a piece of software which is ready to be deployed to prod. That stage is called continuous delivery. So this is the software release phases. And when we talk about DevOps, we always talk in terms of DevOps pipeline. So what is a pipeline called? It's a flow of water from our perspective, right? If you want to relate to that, the entire software development process, right from the design, coding, till it goes to the production environment, we define in terms of a pipeline with all the steps involved. The first step is the developer have put the code in. So they're going to commit it to the source control management system. After that, we're going to trigger a build. So when we trigger a build, we use the famous Jenkins CI/CD server to trigger the build, generate the artifact, and then we will deploy to the staging environment. Once it is certified and is ready, we will deploy to the production environment. This sequence is called a pipeline. So when we say this DevOps pipeline, how do you implement DevOps in our office? I mean, in your software development practice, how can you implement DevOps? First and foremost, we have to enable the cross-functional teams to embrace this cultural change. First thing, it's a mindset change. You'll have to start adapting it. So with the invent of, when we are moving from waterfall to agile methodology, or when we started earlier adapting agile methodology also, like there was a subtle gap between how the developers work and how the operations team work, and there's lack of collaboration, right? It's a mindset change. The more and more they understand these things, there might be lesser boundary between these two teams, and it will help them to take more responsibility and move forward. So now, how do you implement these DevOps practices in software development? We have various tools and technologies which can come to our rescue to help us implement these steps in our day-to-day software development methodologies. Okay, so what are the benefits of adapting DevOps, following DevOps practice to our company? Of course, we'll get speed. Our intention is to take the idea, the ideation that cropped up, and the feature probably requested by the customer, the time that ideation came and we wanted to start implementing it, to the time it reaches the end user or the customer where you have started using it. So the velocity should be high. How it can have a high velocity? The moment you have automation in the entire line, the velocity can be high. The rapid delivery. Again, the automation and stuff, it's going to increase the delivery and reliability. So every time you do a build, make a change, and you're going to propagate that change to the environment, the updates and fixes that you're passing should be highly reliable. And your infrastructure should be scalable. So what do you mean by scalable? Your application should support the large surge in the usage. For example, I said Diwali sale, the spike of the users might go suddenly, right? All of a sudden when the website wide 50% discount is announced, whether they're buying it or not, at least to see what is the offer given, there'll be a number of people coming in, walking in and just viewing it. Window shopping, it doesn't happen only in face-to-face when you visit the store. A lot can happen on online as well, right? So the moment you forward some link, somebody will peep in. So all these counts to your surge in the spike, right? So to handle this spike, the application should be able to handle the load. On the other side, the infrastructure should also be able to handle that load. To enable the infrastructure to handle the load is done by infrastructure as a code. Provisioning 5 virtual machines to serve the request as a web server, or later it has to be increased to 10 or 100,000, can also be automated using infrastructure as a code. Now, improved collaboration. So there should be a constant communication and good collaboration between dev and ops. That's a key thing here. And definitely implementation of DevOps practices is not going to compromise security aspect in any way. Still, we can ensure that all the compliance is met and it is taken care. So those are the key benefits of DevOps. It is a vast subject. You can go on talking about it. With the interest of time, I'm just keeping and conveying the gist of each of the topic. Now, what are the tools that we can use in the traditional data center world, right? So in the present data center world, when we are working on development, when we say improved collaboration is a must as part of DevOps, communication is a key thing. So when we are saying communication is a key thing, So there are some most widely used tools like Slack, Twilio can be used for cross collaboration and communication. So these days, email has become little outdated, I would say. More of the communication happens in Slack for day-to-day development activities. And for you to code, build, and deploy, you would use various tools. For coding, if you're a Java person, you would use Eclipse. If you're a .NET person, you might use Visual Studio. And for build and deployment, Git is the place where you can use as a source control management system. And you have Maven or Gradle to compile and generate the artifact. Jenkins is a CI/CD tool, and Docker is a container stuff. Okay, so when we talk about configuration management, that is configuration management would include server provisioning, configuration of the servers, all these things. This can be taken care using the softwares like Puppet, Chef, Ansible, and SaltStack. So now you have created the infrastructure, built and deployed the code. So we need system to monitor and alert us if it is good or bad, whatever it is, right? So we have Splunk, Sumo Logic, and Nagios. These are some of the monitoring system wherein we can go and see from last 1 week, was there any error reported in your web server? Is there any issue with the database server? How does my CPU utilization looks? So are we good? So those are the things. And also you can configure to notify set of team for some specific errors or issues. And as far as testing is concerned, you can have unit test, you can have Micro Focus UFT tool for your automated functional tests. You can also have open source Selenium for running your automated tests. And also you can again use the Micro Focus load runner to do your load test, stress test, all that. So these are some of the wide variety of tools. I saw Arun raising a hand. If you want to ask something here, or can we keep the Q&A at the end?
We can,
We will have it at the end of the session, Bo.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, so far we saw an overview of DevOps, and then we moved on to how the traditional DevOps system looks like. What are the tools and software services that we use in a data center world to apply and implement this DevOps best practices? Now, cloud is the next big thing, right? Everywhere we talk like on the cloud, every application is moving onto the cloud. So these are the jargons that we are hearing. Now we're going to see what are the services that we have in AWS that can facilitate DevOps. AWS is one of the leading cloud provider across the world, providing us infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and also like required functionalities. So now how do you relate? What is DevOps versus AWS? AWS provides a lot of services to facilitate or implement DevOps practices across your product development lifecycle. We'll get into that in detail. So now like, what are the DevOps practices? First thing is continuous integration. So we saw what is continuous integration. The moment the source code is committed, the developer makes changes and he commits the changes to the source control system. At the time it goes off and then it delivers to the end user, right? This is called the continuous integration. The aim is to reduce the time as much as possible and give the feedback continuously to the developers so that changes can be implemented as and when issues are found. Then continuous delivery. Anytime we need to have ready to be deployed software available, because this continuous integration gives the feedback and the compilation issues are taken care and we have a finished product ready. So now like what is this microservices? If you say my entire web application, if I have the online shopping website, the whole application is built as one huge package, then if there is an issue found, I have to compile the whole big package, generate the artifact, and deploy it. When I'm deploying that particular package, I'll bring down the entire system. User will not be able to see anything. Instead, if I have broken that into microservices, probably if you assume there is a 3-tier application, you have a web tier, app tier, and database tier, at least you would have created the web tier as a microservice separate and app tier as a separate microservices. There is an issue only on the application side. Still, some amount of users can be engaged with the web application, web interface. It doesn't give a literally bad screen or long downtime. You'll do a quick deployment and bring it up, right? So even if there is an issue with web server component alone, that can be fixed and then deployed. So microservices actually breaking down one huge monolithic application into small components. So this can be tested easily. Okay, so now the next one is infrastructure as a code. So this is very trending, I would say, wherein you can create the code to spin up the infrastructures also. So you don't have to be with the same mode of creating an IT ticket, the help desk ticket, which will reach your IT operations team, take a couple of hours or days for you to get one virtual machine for you to test and explore. So we are moving away from that. So with the infrastructure as a code, with a click of a button, using the code, you'll be able to create 10 servers, 20 or 100 servers, how much ever you wanted for your development. And then monitoring and logging, you will have a dashboard which will say whether there is an issue with the application or there is an issue with a specific service that you're using, the specific software that you're using. All these things can be monitored and taken care immediately. Throughout the cycle, there will be a continuous communication and cross collaboration within the teams. That's what the DevOps practices enforces. So now, when I say AWS has a lot of services to facilitate DevOps, in nutshell, AWS Cloud have 175 plus services, but there are key services that would facilitate DevOps cycle. If you go back to this DevOps life cycle, for coding, when you wanted to work on coding, you have Cloud9, which is a highly integrated editor. With zero effort, you can spin up an editor online, you can work on it, make the change, and this is the code commit is the source control repository. The source code can be placed into this source control repository. So for either in this development environment or the source code repository, you don't have to create a machine, install the software, and then use it. It is a kind of managed services wherein you don't have to really do things from scratch. If you have a kind of a tab or a, not to have a high-end laptop, it's a kind of average laptop. In those days, we would call this some dumb machines, I would say, which is good enough for you to do a good browsing. That laptop is fine for you to connect to this Cloud9, which is a development environment. You can create a quickly, easily your Eclipse environment or a .NET environment wherein you can make the changes. Automatically, that will have the interface to commit the changes into source control system, AWS code commit. So it's all taken care. After that, you have a service called Code Build, which will help you to compile the code, generate the artifact, and store it. And you can integrate wide variety of third-party tools for your testing. It could be your Jenkins link, which you've used, or your load runner, or your UFT testing, which you have already used. So you can integrate wide variety of testing. And when you're ready, so you can use AWS code pipeline, which can orchestrate the entire thing. Take the code, build it, test suites are executed, and then you're going to release it to the staging environment or to the production. So how do you deploy? either you wanted to deploy to a staging environment or you wanted to deploy to a production environment, we use a couple of tools. One is like you use code deploy, and you can also use Elastic Beanstalk to facilitate your deployment. Only thing is, if you configure and automate the deployment to one server, then deploying to hundreds of servers is seamless, and the overhead of this undifferentiated heavy lifting is taken away from your shoulders, and it is handled by this automation, the services provided by AWS Cloud itself. And we have this CloudFormation template that is nothing but the template which is used to create your servers to deploy the applications. So infrastructure can also be as a code. For continuously monitor and alert developers or the release manager or a QA team about what is the issue, all those things, we have a service called CloudWatch, which can monitor and alert. So these are some of the services which will help in DevOps and how these things can be used. I wanted to show you a sample pipeline, I would say, how we can leverage AWS services and implement the pipeline so that we can have an integrated build and deployment. Okay, so we have the servers already running. So when we have existing servers in AWS world, this EC2 is what we called as a server, virtual server on which you wanted to deploy an application. So now I have a virtual server in my private network running and waiting, or it is already serving the customers with the older version of the application. So if I'm going to set up a pipeline to integrate the build and deployment, what we will do, we have a set of developers who are making changes and they're committing it to source control repository. So my pipeline, this gray area is called my code pipeline. It's going to have 3 stages. One is source stage, the build and deploy stage. Here, first I'll pull the source code from the source control repository. That could be your code commit in the AWS cloud, or it could be Git from your data center world, or wherever you have set up. You're going to pull the source code. You're going to compile it, generate an artifact. You're going to compile in this phase and generate an artifact, put it in a storage space. S3 is the storage designed for the internet from the AWS cloud. So we are putting it in S3 bucket, or you can consider any artifact repository where you wanted to put your application output for the deployment. Parallelly, when you're building and generating an artifact, it is a best practice to run the unit tests defined by the developers so that any issues are caught earlier in the deploy lifecycle, or the rather DevOps lifecycle, I would say. So now when the artifact is created, we'll move on to deploy phase. We would use the service called AWS Code Deploy, which would go and fetch the artifact from the storage space or the location, and it's going to deploy to the EC2 instance. So here, this pipeline involves 3 stages: get the source code, build, generate the artifact, and deploy it to the target instance. Here I am taking only one virtual machine or EC2 as an instance as an example, but in a real life scenario, it could be hundreds of servers where you wanted to deploy. So how would it possible for us to do that deployment, monitor it, all that without such a closed loop of DevOps practice, right? So that's where this plays a vital role in getting that done. So now when I said 3-stage pipeline, this is how it would look in your AWS cloud when you integrate and run your deployment. First, it has pulled the revision number. For this revision ID, it has pulled the particular revision number, built and generated the artifact, and it has deployed to the staging environment. It's a simple Java web application. At all these places, it says when the deployment have succeeded and how much time it has taken. Okay, so this pipeline talks about building it, generating an artifact, deploying to staging environment, probably running test suites. What if I wanted to have another 2 stages? I will have to get an approval from release manager, and then I want to take it to the production environment. Yes, that is also possible. So we can add 2 more stages to that pipeline where we can include a manual approval. When this approval is included, this will send an email notification to your release manager, who's going to click the link and say either approve or reject. So based on that, if it is approved, it's going to continue to the next stage of production deployment. In that way, randomly, every build will not go to the production environment. It is controlled. It is automated. It has a gatekeeper, gate involved, where your release manager comes and blesses. Okay, it's good to go for the next environment, prod ready. So after that, it gets deployed to the production environment. This is how you would define a pipeline in integrated. And this is the simplest of the scenario, I would say. In a real life, it's going to be really complex than what we are talking. This use case is all about deploying to one particular virtual machine, the simplest of all. Okay. And there are also a lot of tools, DevOps tools available in the AWS marketplace, other than the services provided by AWS Cloud itself. So these are the services, LoadRunner Cloud, or you have Chef if you wanted to take care of configuration management, server provisioning, all that. Dynatrace is for complete the performance, end-to-end performance, testing and analysis of the application and monitoring. So Moonsoft, Harness Pros. So these are some of the DevOps tools which is available in the AWS marketplace, which you can use. See, the one good thing on the services that we use in the AWS world is you're going to pay only for the time that you're going to use it. It's based on the pay as you go pricing model. If you're using this service for your testing purpose, okay, I'm using currently the installed version of LoadRunner in my office and my data center. I would want it to explore and go for LoadRunner Cloud. So you don't have to purchase it and keep it in your shelf whether using it or not. Go online, go to the AWS marketplace, take that service, and you're going to pay only for the number of hours that you're consuming this service. In that way, for you to research, explore, and if you find it's useful, you can continue to implement. If you find after a week's exploration, if you feel, okay, this is not going to be my thing, then you can discard that and go. You would have spent only for the number of hours that you have used that service during that 1 week period. So that's how all the services with the cloud provider works. You're not putting any capital investment. It is absolutely replaced with the pay as you go pricing model. You do not have capital, it's only the variable price that you're going to pay. Okay, so what is the value addition that you get out of DevOps implementation? Our intention is to have the shorter development life cycle, faster innovation. The moment things are automated, the feedback loop is given quickly. Thereby, this helps us and reduce deployment failures. Even if there is a failure in the deployment, you will have an option to roll back to the previous successful build which was deployed and running. And time to recover. If there is an issue, it should be able to quickly recover. The application should be resilient to recover itself in case of failure. And the improved communication and collaboration across the cross-functional teams comes as a boon definitely as part of this, which helps them to be responsible for their own deliverables with a positive outlook. And automation wherever and whenever possible has provided the complete agility towards the development process. It has brought in speed. Okay, so now either if you're working on a data center world where we saw different set of tools, or if you're adapting AWS cloud services to implement DevOps practices in your company, after implementing the practice or when you implement, so how would you gauge it? So you have went ahead and implemented these DevOps practices. Now, after 3 months down the line, how would you gauge the success of DevOps? Is it working? So these are some of the metrics for you to gauge whether the process, practice, or the automation, all that you implemented is working well. One is rapid delivery of features with the increased efficiency. And the other one, more number of features are released to the production environment by reducing the time to market. The time to market is like the time it takes for a specific feature changes to reach the production environment. And also the quicker feedback, either through the system or the user, the loop is getting closed for the teams and the stakeholders to review the changes and act or react quickly. And the more number of defects or issues that you identify in your development environment, system integration testing cycles, or in your unit testing is good for you, right? Let's not consider that as a fault finding or evaluation. It's a positive thing. The more number of defects are detected in these testing phases will reduce lesser number of issues reported in your pre-production and production environment. That's when the next option, the tickets and incidents volume reduction in your pre-production and production environment. Is it not a good factor to have less number of issues reported by the customers, right? So better our QA finds out or the automation finds out the issues. It's good for us to fix them before it's been got redundantly by the customers. And now with all these tools giving high availability, that is, the system should be up and running all the time, 24/7, whenever a customer is trying to access it. So the application should be highly available, servicing the customers. The elasticity and scalability should be in place, both for the application as well as for the infrastructure. Today, if I have normal days, not many people are visiting my online shopping site, but I am expecting Diwali sale where I'm going to announce site-wide 50% discount. Then the application load will increase. My infrastructure should also be able to scale up that elasticity. And what happens after the Diwali sale? That 50% should come down, right? When the 50% sale offer is taken away, now the load which has increased has to come down. That is where the elasticity is. You should be able to revert and retreat. So these are the metrics that will help us to gauge ourselves. So the DevOps journey begins. Basically, DevOps is a practice and a summary to bridge the gap between the development teams and operations teams to increase the agility, bring in greater collaboration between teams, and reduce the time in which the software is a finished product right from the development to reaching the production environment. So that's it I had for today, and it's open for questions.
Bala, are you there? Hello, Bala, are you there?
Bala is not there, sir. I think.
Then you can
Okay.
open the question session, Google.
Yeah. Yes, madam. Thank you so much, madam, for your valuable insight, especially on the DevOps. I think it might be like a new area for all of us. Definitely for the student community as well as for our IAE, the professional member would have known about it, and definitely the journey is already initiated from you. I think I'll open up with the QA session. So the members inside our chat box, like inside our Zoom, so they can put forward their queries. Maybe you can unmute your mic. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat box. I think first we got some query from the chat box. So one is from Rajalakshmi. How a chemical engineer has job opportunities with just an AWS Syvosys certification?
I'm assuming Rajalakshmi is a SysOps certified professional and she's looking to explore opportunities.
Yeah, I think Rajalakshmi, can you unmute? Otherwise, you can give your answer through chat.
Are you aspiring to take the AWS SysOps certification or you're already certified? So either ways, don't combine and confuse with the background that you're coming from. So the chemical engineering has nothing to do with you wanted to pursue your future as a software engineer. It's a passion that would drive you. And I didn't start with AWS right from the beginning of the career. AWS itself was launched in 2006. Okay. And I started practicing AWS last 6 years, I would say. So, and I graduated in the year 2000. So it's a wide gap, right? Constant learning is the key thing. And don't worry about which department or stream that you're coming from. As long as you have the passion, energy, and interest to learn something, go with a zeal.
Stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. There is another question from Shruti
No
Krishna.
problem.
Yeah, from
Okay.
SPC. Ma'am, what should I first start with if I wanna become a DevOps engineer? And what is the future of a DevOps in India?
Okay, DevOps is like a very niche field, I would say. As I told, it was like started in 2009 effectively as a practice. But by the time it came widespread, it's like past 8 years, 7 or 8 years, it will be widespread. So the opportunities are more. It's a niche skill set. In a company, they would need 100 developers, but relatively they would need 5 to 8 DevOps engineers. That's how the ratio would be, but it's a niche skill set, more in demand, not just in India, anywhere for the matter, it's a high in demand thing.
Okay.
As long as you are a master of the subject what you have taken, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think if any other further QA, I think they can drop up in the chat box. There is another one from Subhash. DevOps emerged with cloud technology. Am I right, ma'am?
See, DevOps practices is an independent thing, and every cloud provider has various services to support DevOps. Today, in my presentation, I spoke about the DevOps tools, services, and practices that is used in a traditional or a data center world. I also spoke about how AWS Cloud provides and what are the services that is provided by the cloud technology. So there are services provided by each of the cloud technologies to facilitate and help us implement the DevOps practice. Okay, Subhash?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Murugan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm there, sir. Thank you so much for a wonderful eye-opening session, ma'am. So it was an exorbitant outcome of this particular DevOps that has been showcased to all the public actually. So we need to have a separate session for it because the data center it's something like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 architectures are being there on a daily basis. But we will be having our own data center, I think so, because earlier we had only 1 MB of phone. Right now we have 12 to 128 GB of data. So that's how the operation is going to be there. So this operations would throw light on how it can be controlled and how all the technologies are going to be binded. So it was a wonderful session, and I request you to give more sessions on it so that we can pull up all such audience, because a separate conference need to be made, I think so, because like blockchain, it is one disruptive technology where we need to work on. So hope if you're free, you can give a date so that we can put up a session in Institution of Engineers itself, ma'am. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Definitely we can work out for a day conference. I am really open for it to support you with that.
Okay.
So we will work it out, sir. My
Sure,
pleasure doing it. I'm really proud, and thank you so much for Dr. Suresh actually inviting me. We both are engineering classmates.
Oh,
So
great.
with that connection, probably he pulled me in after a long time into this, and I'm really proud to meeting with proven professionals who are working in the high cadres in the government. I never had an opportunity to interact with them, witness their sessions, and I'm really proud that you are there to be part of my session. So thank you so much for all the great opportunities, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much.
Thank
ma'am. So
you. Thank
we'll
you,
get
Bhavana.
connected.
Thank you for your wonderful session.
Thank you so much, Sage.
Balamurugan, let us conclude, and if you want, it's over, no?
Yes, yes, it's over. So someone can propose a vote of thanks, and you can conclude it. I can myself then propose. I think so. So thank you so much for the wonderful opportunities that has been arranged by Suresh, and without Suresh, we could not seen Madam or DevOps in this particular evening, that is lockdown period. I think so, because it is such a wonderful thing where every people are thronging to learn DevOps, which is a boon, and people could not have even listened about it. I think so. So because all such words are Greek and Latin to people, that is where. But now we got an insight of each and everything with the speciality, the words, whatever she has utilized, and the sweet quoted words of that operational procedures too. It was a wonderful thing to listen. And IEA, which is celebrating its 100th year. So it is a benchmark event that we got, Madam, today's evening. And thank you so much, ma'am. And also I need to thank one and all, so the speakers and other people who joined for inaugural of that particular meeting. So who want to associate with our 100 years institution. So I thank Praveen sir and other people who have joined the session. And I also need to thank the people behind the scenes. So the students who are watching and the professionals who are watching behind it. So we would have more sessions which would live up your expectations. We would be having such sessions going forward. So thank you so much, audience. And I also need to thank EWP chairman Gokul sir, so who has coordinated, and although he is a chemical engineer and scientist, but still he was part of the program. So I need to thank, and not but the least, so I need to thank chairman sir, so who has given and who was been keen support with all such programs, and he's technically strong enough to even live the program. So that is that need to be appreciated. Thank you so much for everyone. So we are closing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Balamurugan. Thank you. Last but not least, I would like to join again with you all to thank everybody for giving me a good opportunity to talk in this particular forum, especially Chairman Sir, Venkatesh Shivaraman Prasad Sir, and PS Praveen Sir, Gokul Sir, and my friend Bhavana, as well as Balamurugan Sir. Thank you, everybody. We'll just wind up now. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhavana. Bhavana, Chairman Ramdas and Suresh, and the participants for patiently hearing to us, and look forward to see you in our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Of the places, the people will give the doctorate. Everybody, maybe you and me.
Yeah, I'm also called doctor, but I am not.
For the first time, I got a doctor title from you, sir. Thank you so much.
Somebody called me, so I am also calling you.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll end the session. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Stay safe. Stay good.
Stay safe. Yeah.
Good evening.